What do I do normally? I just read this thing. Okay,
You
perfect.
say, hello.
Hello!
Yeah, exactly.
Just like that. Hello and welcome to another episode or chapter or whatever it is of Midlight Crisis, a real podcast hosted by three grown adults revisiting books from our teens, and it's totally cool. And the best part is this week it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's like chill.
None of us are just like having our midlife crisis over these chapters, which is wonderful.
Yeah, I was glad you prefaced the chapters there.
Just these chapters,
Just these
specifically,
chapters.
and only compared to the other chapters, not compared to anything else we've read ever.
No.
Anyway, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Sophie, and my randomly generated YA title of the day is The Day of Daisies and Druids.
Oh.
Which just sounds really nice.
Yeah, I like that one.
Like, you know, we're heading into winter. I miss flowers and being outside in the daytime when it's nice out. So,
seeing the sun past 4 p.m.
Yeah. You know, I go to work before the sun comes up and I get home after it goes down. So, honestly, what is daytime? What about you guys?
Hi, my name is Sam, and my YA title of today is, or the week, or I don't know, man, my day. Anyways, my book title is My Fields of Roses and Falling Leaves.
Wow. We just got two beautiful books this
I know,
week.
right? Which is like in contrast to what my week has been like. So my week has not been beautiful.
That's why we're doing this podcast about Twilight, Sam.
Yeah.
I know.
Maybe it's about next week when the episode comes out.
True.
Yeah.
True. Okay, and Hannah?
And Hannah, that's me. My name is Hannah. And following the tradition I've established accidentally and randomly over the last couple of episodes, my YA title for the week is about me, and it is a scrap of Twilight and Formula One.
Whoa.
Is that like about a piece of like monstrous scrap off of a race car that somebody finds at Twilight?
No, I think it's just like, here are the things that Hannah thinks about today.
True.
Twilight and Formula One.
Yeah.
I also thought a lot about coffee
Mm-hmm.
and acoustic releases.
Wow.
There you go.
That's a good range of stuff.
I lead a really interesting life, you guys.
Yeah, I can tell. I mean, the Formula One thing sounds interesting.
Do you want me to tell you all about it in great depth?
Well, I would, but honestly, we're late to get on the bus for the next part of the podcast, which is
so Twilight and Midnight Sun were not that different from each other. So my summary is
spoilers.
Very short. So yeah, this was actually my OG original favorite chapter, but now rereading it, I just don't understand how chill Bella is with him just admitting he's a vampire. Like, I get it. Even in the last chapter, we talked about this a lot, and she's just so chill. But this whole thing was even... anyways, in short, the whole chapter is their conversation home from Port Angeles, in which they talk about Edward being a vampire, and then the chapter ends with the famous, there were 3 things I was certain of line. Also, their conversation basically answered all of our questions about the mind reading and a lot of other things from last episode. So, hey, there we are. What happened in Midnight Sun?
In Midlight Sun.
Uh-huh.
How is Midlight Sun?
Tell us about Midlight Sun.
In Midnight Sun, the chapter is also called Theory, and the conversation is exactly the same. Probably word for word, although I didn't check that closely because reading the exact same conversation twice in close succession is boring. But it does add a few short scenes from Edward's perspective after he drops Bella off at home that are a little interesting. Namely, he drives around for a little while until he remembers that he wants to kill Lanny. But instead of doing that, he goes home to talk to Carlisle, where Alice meets him at the door, confirming that she was the one who called him in the previous chapter to warn him about the impending attack on Bella. She has been distracted because Jasper is trying not to decide what to get her for their upcoming anniversary, which is very cute. And then Edward and Carlisle drive back to Port Angeles, where Edward wants to kill Lanny, but decides to leave it to Carlisle, who I think is going to be surreptitiously chemically castrating him. It was a little unclear, but very sinister. And then Edward runs in a straight line back to Forks and directly into Bella's bedroom. Should we start by covering the mind reading lore that we were speculating about last time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why anybody would not be reading both Twilight and Midnight Sun at the same time with us, but in case you're not, we have answers.
And also only one chapter at a time, and then waiting 2 weeks to read the next chapter.
It's like the most normal way to read a book. I don't know why you're making it sound so weird.
Yeah, just so mysterious. Honestly, though, I felt like he gave a bunch of answers that didn't necessarily line up with what was actively being created as the lore in previous chapters. But anyway,
I agree.
The rule is he can't hear anyone anywhere. Like, this is directly reading the paragraph. He has to be close. The more familiar he is with the voice, the farther away he can hear them.
Mm-hmm.
No more than a few miles still. And basically, he can't hear a single voice unless he's paying attention. It just sounds like a buzzing of voices in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, okay, but then before he said that he was answering Carlisle's mental voice instead of his real voice.
Yeah.
So was it initially not that it was a buzzing of voices? Like, has he worked to get to that point? I guess.
Maybe Carlisle's voice was so familiar to him already that he just could hear him better.
When he says the more familiar someone's voice is, like, it's in quotes, like he means their mental voice.
Yeah.
That was the other thing, because, like, he says, oh, I have to be familiar with them, and then I can hear them farther away. How well does he know Lanny?
That's what I'm saying!
Like, not that well.
No, I'm pretty sure they just met.
That was my thought. How the heck did he hear him in the restaurant?
Like, it would make more sense if, like, once you're tuned in, so he found that person's mental voice, and if he didn't let it drop, like, if you're attuned to it and you're listening to pull it apart, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe?
All of this could have been way, like, get rid of this whole paragraph and just be like, the more I'm focusing on someone's voice, the farther away I can hear it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't even know.
It's mysterious for sure.
At least, you know, the effort is here. There's enough description here that there's enough description here that it's kind of like, okay, yeah, there's rules to it. Let's move on.
Yeah,
I guess.
It seems totally reasonable until you also read Midnight Sun.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the name of this podcast.
I love the name of this podcast.
Why am I the only one who has this problem?
Hannah not being able to say midnight ever again.
Never. I'm gonna be, like, doing a presentation for work or something at some point and need to talk about times of day.
Uh-huh.
Because I currently work in telemetry and, like, when things happen matter a lot.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a problem.
Yep.
This podcast is going to cause problems in my professional life, but not for the reasons you might think.
Not for the reasons you might think. If it makes you feel better, between the Dungeons and Dragons I play and the fact that I've been playing a lot of Sea of Thieves, which is like a pirate game where you fight skeletons,
Ooh.
I talk to a lot of people while playing D&D and that game, and I say skellington instead of skeleton because it's funny. And every time I go to say skeleton, my throat closes because it's trying to say skellington. And I'm like, I'm going to be at work talking about fish bones and say skellington by accident. Anyway.
Hey, Sophie, did you notice that we can make kind of a vague approximation of how fast Edward runs in this chapter?
Oh, yeah! I was so excited! Yeah, I think it was like chapter 2 or 3 where it was like, man, I just wanted him to say how long it takes him to run some predetermined distance so that we can figure out how fast Edward can run when he's going fast.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think he says it takes like 45 minutes to drive at his super speed from Port Angeles to Forks.
Mm-hmm.
But then, how long did he say it took him to run?
It said it took him a few minutes
Okay,
to run
okay.
in a straight line from Port Angeles to Forks, which are the straight line distance between those two places is about 74 kilometers or 46 miles.
Okay.
I don't know what
Fun.
that means, but it's 74 kilometers, and I do know what that means.
So do you assume that a few minutes is 3? So then you take, 74 kilometers every 3 minutes?
Do you think it's like 3, or do you think it's like if he says minutes?
A
that-
few minutes.
I don't know. Someone says a couple. I assume 2. Someone says a few. I assume 3.
I usually assume a few is just any small number.
Yeah.
So I did some math, and I decided to be very generous, I suppose, with how long a few minutes is. It was just like, okay, these places are 74 kilometers apart. Let's assume it takes him 15 minutes. Like, that's more than a few minutes, but it seems pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And if he runs 15 minutes, which again, probably is a little bit generous, he probably went faster than that.
Yeah.
But at that rate, he is running 5 kilometers per minute.
Wow.
Takes me like an hour to run 5 kilometers.
I was gonna say it takes me 45 minutes to run 5K now. I used to be able
wow,
to do it.
45 minutes.
Used to be able to do it a lot faster, but that was a while ago.
That's fast.
Mhm.
And
Okay,
that's
wait.
slow.
Wait, sorry. Say how much that was again? What was it?
It was 74 kilometers. And if he
Yeah.
runs 74 kilometers in 15 minutes, that's a little bit under 5 kilometers per minute.
So that's how many meters per
Do you want
second
meters
is
per
that?
second?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I refuse to do
That's-
math on my off time.
Fine.
So if we assume that my assumption of 15 minutes is correct, he is running at 83 meters per second.
Whoa. Okay, and then if we assume like the fastest, which is like 3 minutes,
Yeah,
Mhm.
right? Then we're looking at
that's 25 kilometers per minute, which is 417 meters per second.
okay. So if he does it that second one in 3 minutes, he does break the sound barrier.
Okay, then he's definitely not going that fast.
He can't be going that fast.
No, because then he would be so noticeable.
But don't they
It's
break
true.
the sound barrier when they're playing baseball?
They can.
I thought it was because they hit the ball so fast, not because
Oh,
they run so
yeah.
fast.
Yeah, I think that's it. And that's why they have to play during thunderstorms.
Right.
But they might be able to run that fast, but they only do it when they know it's safe.
Yeah. So he probably ran it in slightly more than 3 minutes.
Yeah. Slightly
Alright.
below the speed of sound.
Yeah.
So, for context, and a different direction, the speediest of the land creatures, which is a cheetah in a full sprint, goes about 27 meters per second. So even if we assume that Edward is quote-unquote slow, he's still 83 meters per second.
Dang.
So he's still almost 3 times faster than a cheetah.
Jesus.
That can't be right. That makes no sense.
I mean, does anything about this book make sense?
You got me there.
That's a great point.
I'm pretty sure we disproved the whole, like, vampire of superpowers thing, too. It didn't even make sense from a conventional fantasy magic system point of view
Yeah.
last week.
Wow. I guess that makes sense. But like the fastest speed that an animal can go, like consistently, is the peregrine falcon when it's in a dive.
Right.
And that's only 108 meters per second.
Well, that's at least faster than
Yeah.
Edward if he runs
Not at the speed of sound.
not at the speed of sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That makes more sense. I remember, okay, I looked this up once because there's like some weird, if you look up, if you look
Hannah
up
found
like,
No, I'm just laughing at Sophie matter-of-factly saying, well, I looked this up once.
Okay,
Like,
sorry,
Sophie,
yeah,
talking about
Sophie, go.
vampire speed. Why did you look up how fast vampires can run? Not for
No.
this podcast.
just to know. No, I looked up the fastest animals because, that's something you look up when you're 29 years old
Yeah.
and you have some free time. There was like an albatross, I think it was a gray albatross, that got caught in a hurricane while wearing like,
Oh, no.
so a satellite tag that measured it in one place and then another place, like extremely far away in a very short amount of time. And they think it was flying and it got caught in this hurricane. And it was it was like like it should have broken the sound barrier. It was like 380 meters per second or something, and it was like, are you kidding me?
Can you imagine like looking up during a storm and seeing a bird just like flailing through the air and then a sonic boom happens?
Yeah, right? Okay, no, I looked it up. Okay, a satellite-tagged gray-headed albatross hit 127 kilometers per hour.
Oh my god,
which is so fast.
That's so fast.
Yeah, anyway.
Uh,
What were we talking about that wasn't birds? Oh yeah, vampires.
Vampires are faster than birds.
Yeah, and the speed of sound. So I
Maybe.
also looked up something to do with this straight line travel by Edward.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to see what there was in his path
Ooh.
on a straight line from, you know, Google Maps center of Port Angeles to center of Forks.
Okay.
He does have to run through a lake.
Well, we've established we can do that.
Yeah, I guess along the bottom. I just would love to know.
I mean, if they're running that fast, I bet he just goes straight over the top like a basilisk.
Like oh yeah. I immediately thought like Harry Potter. I was like,
So did I!
But you mean
No,
like
like
a
the
real
lizard.
life lizard basilisk.
Like a
which
lizard
makes more
basilisk.
sense.
I went Harry Potter snake basilisk.
Yeah.
How's that gonna go across?
How does it do that? Yeah.
You know, this is a science podcast, not a book podcast.
Not a
Come on,
book
guys.
podcast. Guys, there are also so many houses. Like, there are so many houses just in the straight line. Like, she goes out of her way to be, like, in a straight line. Like, Edward's
Yeah.
just fucking launching himself off of people's roofs. Like, what? There's, like,
Very
a
subtle.
town. It's, I don't even know what to say.
There's two towns next to each other on the road between Forks and Port Angeles, and their names are Beaver and Sappho. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
This is a good naming convention.
Oh, man.
Big fan.
I wonder what the population of Sappho is like.
I'm a Google that.
So I was looking up, because I'm trying to go to BC possibly, so I was looking it up on Google Maps for Airbnbs, and Port Angeles is like just below the border.
Yeah, it's super close.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was just like, damn it. If only the border was open and not the US wasn't rampant with COVID,
Yeah.
I could like go record the podcast
From
in an Airbnb
like,
in Forks
yeah.
during my nomadic life that I'm planning.
Wouldn't that be
Nice.
amazing?
Yeah, and I could go look all this up in person.
That'd be pretty chill. I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't wish anyone I care about going into the States right now. Sorry,
No.
all of my American friends.
Yeah. Oh, there's 14,000 people living in Sappho in Washington. More men than women, but I don't know about that.
Well,
I imagine it attracts a certain crowd. While we're talking about the map around,
Mhm.
so Edward talks about the pomegranate again,
yes.
Sure
which
does.
is annoying. And so I thought I would like look into the actual myth. And
Okay.
while I was looking at the myth, I happened to have this map open. And I was like, oh, really interesting that Forks and Port Angeles are around Mount Olympus.
Oh.
Like
Oh.
that's the mountain. That's the name
Oh,
of
that's
the mountain.
interesting.
Is
Right.
it actually?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's like the Olympic National Forest is like that whole forest there. And yeah, the mountain that is part of it is between Port Angeles and Forks is Mount Olympus, which is, I don't know, a fun thing.
So, for our next book, after we finish Twilight, we will find the crossover fan fiction that somebody definitely wrote about Twilight and Percy Jackson.
Oh, I don't want to ruin Percy Jackson. Don't ruin Percy Jackson for me.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say, "Oh, we'll read a Hades Persephone fanfic. That's really good." And I was like, "Yes, please."
Isn't that what Midnight Sun is?
Sophie, don't take this away from me right now.
We're kicking Sophie off the podcast.
Bye. No, but to talk about the myth a little bit more.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was kind of interesting because the like direct translation that I was reading said that Persephone was wandered off from her group of friends and was caught by Hades by a gloriously fragrant flower, which is like, I don't know, kind of like an interesting parallel when Bella is like the scent is what is drawing Edward to her.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in this chapter, we have Bella being like, and Edward smells really good too.
Yeah.
Like scent is just such like a big part of the whole thing
Mhm.
that, you know what? I guess if you had to pick a myth,
Yeah.
I guess this one makes sense.
It does make sense.
But the other
Yeah.
interesting thing that is that like of all the like female, I guess you don't have to say female goddesses, you can just say goddesses. Of all the goddesses,
the goddesses who are also women.
yeah, you know, in the like Greek pantheon,
Mhm.
Persephone is the only one who, despite this like quote unquote origin story where she's like kidnapped by Hades,
Mhm.
she's the only one who is ever portrayed as having like a full partnership.
Right.
She is portrayed as the dread Persephone, queen of the underworld. So she has become this like powerhouse in her own right, which kind of mimics, you know, Bella turning into a vampire.
Spoilers. What the heck?
I don't know.
Damn.
In my book report for Twilight, where I actually took it seriously, this is what I would write about.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's fun.
I think that's reasonable.
You're not wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's a good myth.
You know, there was such a good book somewhere in Twilight.
Yeah. It's too bad Edward was in it.
It's too bad.
I mean, 17-year-old me loved it. 28-year-old me would go back and slap her, but it's fine.
Yeah. 17-year-old me also loved it.
Mhm.
This chapter, I feel like kind of reminded me why. Like, I actually really liked, in particular, the Twilight chapter. Like, Bella was confident and, like, a little bit sassy
Mhm.
and, like, knew what she wanted and how she was going to get it.
Mhm.
And just, like, yeah, this was a good chapter. I liked the way their interaction went. I liked that they both were honest with each other, even though it makes no sense for Edward to be honest with her. He even talks about how he's just gonna, like, admit, well, might as well be an open book, tell Bella everything. Like, I don't think that's a great way to approach this.
I just still can't get over like how chill it was. I agree. I like
Yeah.
this chapter. I liked the conversation, the banter. Like that's the kind of stuff I look for. I just on a realist level, because I've just become more of like a realist, even though I read a lot of fantasy.
Yeah, but you have to be able to believe what they're selling, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? And like that kind of conversation, it's just like you don't just as like crazy as the theories you come up with, like I'm sure we've all had these crazy theories about people and stuff growing up. Maybe I'm the only one, I don't know. But even still, if someone like came up to you and full on like, oh yeah, I thought they were a vampire, just because they were like this certain way, and they actually came and admitted that to you, like I don't think I would be that chill.
No, I'd be a little concerned.
Yeah, I was thinking about this because I felt the same way. Like, I was like, how is Bella being so fucking chill?
Yeah.
Like, what? But from Bella's perspective, right? These vampires are at her school. Her dad is like the sheriff. And if there were missing persons reports, if there were like weird deaths at the school among the students, if there were like deaths in the town, she would have known about it, right? Like her dad
That's
would
true.
know about it. People can't just go missing in a town like Forks, especially to
Yeah.
the sheriff who knows
Yeah.
everything about everyone. And so even if she's finding out like, oh my God, these people are vampires, the first thing she learns about them from Jacob Black is that, well, they don't eat humans.
Right.
And so even though she has Edward telling her like, I'm dangerous, realistically, without, again, if we're building off of the fact that like there isn't that much vampire media or lore in this world, she doesn't necessarily have like a reason to believe that this vampire would hurt her, right?
Yeah.
True.
Well,
On
did you
that-
notice
I think you're going to say the same thing that I was going
I
to say.
am.
Yeah, go for it.
Edward explicitly mentions when when Bella is telling him that she believes he's a vampire, that he did not see any Bram Stoker or Anne Rice on her bookshelf in her room.
Oh, I missed that part.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you?
Yeah.
I sticky noted it immediately because I was like, oh, this like he mentions it.
Whoa. Okay, how
Yeah,
did Bella
here.
not find that on the internet?
Yeah.
It's on page 199, in case anybody is wondering. And he said, I had no idea if Bram Stoker or Anne Rice was there in her stack of worn paperbacks.
Dang.
Yeah.
So there is the same, presumably, pre-Twilight vampire canon in this universe
Yeah.
that there is in ours.
Yeah.
And
Dang.
Bella is just really bad at Googling.
That's so weird.
It is pretty weird.
It's, yeah.
It would be so easy to just not include that.
Yeah.
That's in Midnight Sun?
It
Yes.
is. Did you read Midnight Sun, Sophie?
No, I did, but it's interesting that like in the Twilight chapter where it talks about Bella looking stuff up,
Yeah.
she did not find Bram Stoker or Anne Rice, and then it's like Stephanie Meyer going back to write this 10
True.
years
Maybe.
later, being like,
True.
oh.
Wait, that was the last of the original chapters, though, because the first 10 chapters got released.
Was it the first 10?
I think it was the first 10.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Actually, maybe we should Google it real quick to fact check.
Also, I'm assuming she probably
edited
them. But
Well-
even then, the first 10 chapters, that was still like...
Yeah, it was a couple years later.
Well, it was the first 12 chapters. Okay, so
First
we
12.
still have 2 more of like the original that were leaked. Yeah, I don't remember from when I originally read it, but I know I found the first chapter again before we started this podcast, and it was pretty much the same as the first chapter in the published one. So there is a chance that it was in the original leaked one from...
Oh, wow. Midnight Sun, the first 12 chapters were released in 2008.
Jeez.
Well, yeah, was it 2008? Okay, yeah, so it was when I was in grade
Wow.
10. Yeah.
Wild. Maybe when Bella was doing her Googling, she was explicitly excluding things that were fiction and just looking for legends. Because, like, nothing in Dracula or Anne Rice books are like, this is what a real vampire is like. I'm writing a story.
But a lot of, like, vampire fiction is based off, like, real mythos. And, like, the real mythos, a lot of it is based off, like, animals or things people have seen or something. So it's like, you would think that if there were real vampires, that some of the like things of Stephanie Meyer's vampires would make it into the fiction of the Stephanie Meyer's world. Like, you think you'd maybe have the sparkling thing, or like...
Yeah. I bet that's where the theory we had about the Volturi putting the kibosh on vampire fiction comes in. Like, anything that is close enough to be plausible, they get rid of, maybe.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And something like Dracula, that's like, okay, well, the Volturi really hate the Transylvanian vampires anyway, so they're probably like, tee.
Yeah.
But the rest of it is like not that close to a Twilight vampire.
Yeah. Plus, if I'm going to just like keep arguing myself deeper into the hole to defend Stephanie Meyer, you could also say that like maybe Dracula and or, you know, Interview with a Vampire never made it to like film. Right? Maybe they are still just like the original books, but they haven't, you know, entered like the public
mainstream
zeitgeist to the same extent. Yeah.
Could be.
As I defend Stephanie Meyer here on my podcast.
Well, it's true though, because like vampires, they were kind of always thing. Like, you had Buffy, you had Interview with a Vampire. Like, it was always kind of there, but it really took off after Twilight.
Yeah.
There's no denying that.
Yeah, but I would argue that like if they had never made it to film or like TV, right? Then if we argue that like, well, the reason people don't know that much about vampires is because they're blocked from becoming like too popular.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You can read the, you know, 1 or 2 novels that come out about vampires, like the way you could read a novel about like a less popular monster.
Yeah. Well, like, I only read Interview with a Vampire because of Twilight. So
there you go.
Yeah, no, like, I am full on. Twilight was the first vampire book I read, and every vampire book I read after that was because of Twilight.
Fun.
Anyway, in the words of Edward himself, should we get back to the horror story?
Oh yeah.
Which,
Is his brain?
I mean, yeah. One of the things I want to mention in that respect is it's made explicit in this chapter that Alice knows and sees Edward going to watch Bella every night and just like co-signs that behavior and is like, you're gonna see her soon, don't worry. It's like,
Yeah,
Alice.
she says like she kind of does need like 24 hours surveillance. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, she
doesn't.
Well, she's
Seriously.
sleeping.
You don't need to watch her while she's sleeping.
I think I said this like in an earlier chapter. I was like, girl, you gotta look out for girls, and this is problematic behavior. Don't allow this.
Don't let him do that.
No.
And Edward goes on for like 2 pages while he's watching Bella sleep, obviously,
Yeah.
about how much she needs like a guardian angel and like what cruel and ugly and harpy-like fate would allow Bella to exist in the world without a guardian angel, and like, why is this angel doing such a terrible job at their job? And then he's like, perhaps I was the angel, but that could never be because I'm such a monster. And it's like, okay, Edward, shut the fuck up.
Also,
Yeah.
just like the privilege seeping out of that,
Right?
and just being like immortal and thinking that everyone should be invincible and like have a guardian angel, and just like
Oh my God.
it just blew my mind. I was like, because I was like Bella, I was a total klutz. I broke my foot, my elbow, like I was constantly hurting myself. And the same thing could have been said for me, but it's like we're all friggin' well, they're not human, they're
Yeah.
vampires. But
Yeah.
like I don't see the logic in it, because I'm just like,
No.
Edward, anyone at any time. She's nothing special anyways.
Yeah, I don't like the way he deifies her.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
I did enjoy that section gave us another adjective to add to our litany of Edward words, which is now stupid, unreliable, creepy, obsessive guardian vampire stalker. Because he does say at the end as a joke, like a guardian vampire instead of a
Yeah.
guardian
Yeah.
angel. So getting longer and longer every episode.
Oh,
I'm
man.
glad you're keeping track of that.
Oh, I'm writing it down every time.
Good.
Perfect. By the time we finish this book, we're going to have to like release a t-shirt that is just all of the Edward adjectives.
It's like a super tiny script because there's going to be like 87 adjectives attached to vampire.
Perfect.
Yeah. I will say, like, the concept of, like, the abstract idea of Bella was supposed to die, and so
Mhm.
now she is way more likely to die as, like, a fate thing
Mm.
is kind of interesting to me. It's the same idea with, like, she and Edward should never have met because he should have died 100 years ago. And so, like, part of their attraction is this thing that they never should have met. And so that's why it's so powerful, their love for each other or something like that. Am I making that
Right.
up?
I don't remember.
There's like a part about it that is like ringing a memory. And so, like, that part, I'm like kind of like, oh, that is sort of interesting as it comes up when Edward's like, I need to protect her because she's gonna die. But
Mhm.
like the way it is actually acted upon,
I mean,
hate
the
it.
way you described it just pulls at the inner romantics of my heart.
Right?
You both know how much of a sap I am, so
Yeah. Swoon worthy for sure for Sam.
For sure.
deep down, I put on this hard shell, but deep
Do you?
down, no, I mean at the surface, you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna stop talking.
We talk about too many books for for me to not know about this inner.
I was gonna say I put off this hard shell even when I'm dating. Like
Yeah.
I have such like high standards, and I just don't waste my time with like people
Yeah.
who I don't feel like it. But like inside, I'm such a sap romantic. Like
Sam doesn't waste her time with people who haven't been dead for 100 years.
I mean,
Did
Oh.
either of you get like, so like the whole guardian angel thing kind of built through the chapter of Edward? I don't know. It was like a weird twisted thing where he was like, well, she certainly can't love me as much as I love her.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it became like this thing where like, well, I love her so much that I need to be here at her side all the time, protecting her like a guardian angel because she needs me. And that just like, oh my God, it like put my back up. Like I was so uncomfortable. That is so creepy and like such another red flag being like, but she
Yep.
couldn't love me as much as I loved her.
He starts to speculate for the third chapter in a row, let's not forget, about like
Yeah.
maybe Bella cares about me too.
Oh my
And
God.
then he says, I knew it could be nothing in comparison to how I loved her. That was the line for me that kind of took it over the edge. And like, I know it's the lore in Twilight, like I think this comes up later, that they are very, is intractable the right word? They're very non-changeable, so like when a change happens, it is like catastrophic and not easily reversed. So I think that's what she's trying to portray, that like Edward has experienced a change, and because he's a vampire, it's super intense and he can't do anything about it. I think you can do that in a way that is romantic and not creepy. And it just doesn't quite hit that.
There's a really actually like sweet moment near the end of, well, it would be the end of the Twilight chapter, but like near the end of the Midnight Sun chapter. And I'm just going to read it, where it's like she's about to leave after he drops her off, and it says, she sat there motionless for a moment, her eyes wide and stunned, dazzled, I guess, as was I. And it's like,
Yeah, that's
oh,
cute.
that's like really cute. And so like there's a
Damn it.
way to do that kind of thing and then have him be like, then he's introspective and being like, wow, I like love her so much and this feeling is totally overwhelming. Like without twisting it from a moment where she expresses that she cares about him and him being like, yes, but it's not as much as I love her, right? Like it's like degrading her feeling to compare it to his.
Yeah, everything is about how he feels.
Yeah.
There's very little consideration of what Bella wants.
I mean, that's like the whole thing of New Moon.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. This is a very Edward. I wonder if all vampires are like this or if it's just Edward.
Yeah. Because at least, like, this chapter is definitely the first time in Midnight Sun that he actually realizes that he hurt her.
Right.
Because she's like, oh man, we can't hang out anymore. Or
Yeah.
whatever 17-year-olds do. And she's like sad, and he notices, and he's like, I've done it. You know, the way he is.
The way I react when I've hurt somebody's feelings.
Yeah, which is like, wow, good job. And then later, Carlisle is like, wow, I can't believe how good Bella is for him. Like, making him so compassionate and empathetic. And it's like, no,
No.
He's not.
Does Edward even know what empathy means?
No.
He literally lives with Jasper.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, man.
Even just from the Twilight perspective, there is a version of Midnight Sun that is like very sweet that could have been written, right? Like there's a very nice Midnight Sun that could have been written.
Yeah.
But she chose to take it in this like very dark route, which I guess like matches how she wrote Edward in Twilight.
Yeah.
Which just kind of makes me sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also, I know I've been harping about this a lot, but like this chapter again highlighted for me how much of a missed opportunity so much of Midnight Sun is. Because they rehashed this entire conversation, word for word, probably. And there were several points reading the Twilight one where I was reading the chapter and thinking, oh, I'm really curious to hear what Edward was thinking like at this moment. At some point, he says that he has to act normal and he scowls, and it's like, okay. They made a point to mention that he's scowling at the idea of acting normal. I wonder why specifically that is, and she doesn't elaborate on it. Doesn't elaborate on the fact that Edward hates driving slow, like doesn't really elaborate on any of the emotional responses that Edward has to the things Bella are saying beyond like what you can infer from Twilight. It's like, I feel like this book could have been so good if it had actually taken some of those like throwaway verbs and adjectives from Twilight and put them in context rather than just saying, like, Edward scowled, and then in Edward's chapter, I scowled because I was unhappy. And it's like, okay, well, yeah. Like, but, like, why?
Yeah. For how much more wordy Midnight Sun is, I feel like for this chapter especially, I was like, there's so much that I did not learn
Yes.
that wasn't rehashed from previous chapters. Like, once again, we have Edward just like vacillating, which is just like, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose my mind with how much Edward is like, we can't be together. And then in the next sentence being like, I'll save you a seat at lunch tomorrow. And it's like,
Right?
what's happening?
Yes.
I hate it.
And, like, we've been talking for almost an hour, but all three of us, when we got on this call to, like, do our pre-pro, we were like, I don't have anything to say about this chapter, because, like, you don't learn anything.
Yeah.
Nothing happens. I mean, you get, like, the famous scene in Twilight where, you know, they finally have the conversation and it confirms that Edward is a vampire, and then Midnight Sun gives you nothing else on top of that.
Yeah, it's just like filler. It's just so much
Yeah.
filler, and
Yeah.
I don't like it. Yeah, my notes for this chapter, a third of my page is Persephone myths. So
I mean, that's more than me. I won't lie though, this was a chapter, like, I finished reading Twilight and I was like, I want to read more. Like,
Yeah, me too.
yeah, it was like, as much as I hate to admit it, I was very much like, I want to read the next chapter because I don't remember. I honestly don't remember what happens in the next chapter. And I was like, I want to keep reading. That was the first time since we've started this that I wanted to do that. Not with the Midnight Sun chapter, the Twilight chapter.
yes, the Midnight Sun, I'm like, this is homework.
Yes.
Literally, I was reading it and I was like, because the Twilight one wasn't that long. And I don't know if it's because I'm reading Twilight on my iPad and I'm reading Midnight Sun on like a hard copy, but Twilight flew by. But Midnight Sun, I kept being like, how many more pages can this friggin' be?
It's so long.
It's so long.
Midnight Sun, this chapter, not previous chapters, but this chapter, I found myself like skipping sentences, which is like a thing I do when I'm reading and I'm like, I just want to get through this part.
Yeah, I do that too.
And I had to keep being like, no, go back and read the whole paragraph. You have
this
to
is
talk
academic
about this on a podcast.
This is academic.
This is academic. It's like research. If you think about it, put this on my CV. No.
If we ever get paid for this podcast, I'll put it on my CV.
The only other notes I had was I wrote, poor Jacob Black indeed.
Yeah. You gotta
boy.
feel for him because like it is very much a thing that girls do, and like I have been guilty of it. I have had men do it to me as well though. I had so many boys in university use me for calculus, and so I knew I was gonna get a laugh out of you guys. No, I'm not even lying. I am not even lying. This guy, oh my god, I was so naive. I was so young and dumb. And I thought he liked me. I was like head over this guy. And my thing was he wanted help with calculus. He was failing calculus. And so I helped him pass calculus. And a bunch of people, like, I would help a bunch of his friends. And like, that's what, but then we would like hang out. And I thought it was something. And it definitely wasn't anything.
I mean, it was something. It was math. For math.
It was, yeah, all I was good for was calculus.
I mean, that's a pretty good thing to be good for, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not good for that for sure.
I'm so glad you're good at calculus.
I mean, don't ask me to do calculus now. I even told my boss this the other day because I got promoted and I was like, now my title is like, I'm actually a data scientist. And I was like, you know, if they actually asked me to do differentials, I'd have to take a week to relearn it.
I mean, that's less time than I would need. So,
yeah, it's definitely something I could easily pick up again. And like, I even helped my mom's friends with their kids' calculus homework over lockdown while they were homeschooling. So it's definitely something like I can still do, but not great anymore. Anyways, more of the whole thing was, yes, I've definitely done this to men, but men have also done it for me. So
yeah, the part for me that was like, I don't know, sad for 17-year-old Team Jacob Sophie was in the world where Edward did not exist. You kind of thought, oh yeah, Bella and Jacob will end up together. And like Edward coming in ruined that. But maybe it didn't. But that was, you know, the internal story that I had and it makes me sad.
Interesting.
When we read New Moon, I'll probably be like, oh yeah, Jacob is also terrible.
It's the worst. They're both the worst. I have to say that is the one part of the conversation they have in the car that is interesting from Edward's perspective, is hearing him think about like the treaty and the fact that Jacob Black has now basically voided the treaty that the Cullens had with the Quileutes of 70 years ago. And he says, I suppose this meant I was now free to slaughter the small defenseless tribe on the coastline were I so inclined. Ephraim and his pack of protectors were long dead. And it's like, well.
Well.
That made me really sad.
He does, like, realize that, like, of course, the people who, the younger generation who has grown up with this as a mythology are where the danger of exposure is, right? The people who don't actually believe it's real.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a good moment in Midnight
Yeah, especially because you know that later
Foreshadowing.
are extremely unhappy with one another.
Yes.
It's kind of nice to get this start where you're like, oh yeah, Edward doesn't like hate the wolves.
They have an uneasy truce.
Yeah, it kind of just seems like it's a feeling of like, well, I'm just not gonna go there.
Yeah.
And I'm not really gonna think about it otherwise.
Seems reasonable to me.
Seems reasonable.
Does anybody else have anything they want to talk about before we end it?
I guess I had one line that I wrote down that was funny.
Okay.
That I liked, which was Edward being like, I was probably still irritating Emmett and all the rest of my family too, except Alice.
Yeah, I love that he finally acknowledges that he's being annoying.
Yeah, the context is he says in the past tense that he irritated Emmett, and then he was like, actually, I'm probably still irritating them. And I was like, yes, absolutely.
Yes. You know who else you're irritating?
3 people on this podcast.
So, I have one last thing before we get to our credits and whatever. Are you guys both reading the same ebook copy of Twilight?
Yes.
Or the same edition? I noticed a discrepancy in mine. Could one of you read the last paragraph of the Twilight chapter? Which is like that quote that Sam was mentioning earlier.
Oh. Yeah, I think I have it here. Just the last paragraph?
Yes.
It starts about 3 things, right?
Yes, about 3 things I was absolutely positive.
First, Edward was a vampire. Second, there was a part of him, I didn't know how potent that part might be, that thirsted for my blood. And third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him.
So that's what mine says in the book. On the back of the book, it has that same quote. And it says, second, there was a part of him, and I didn't know how dominant that part might be.
Oh.
That thirsted for my blood.
Dang.
Right?
Oh.
I wonder what the reason for it being different is.
And why not change it in the book if you wanted that on the back cover so much?
Yeah, like that's, to me, that's such a peculiar change. If you're going to market this as the quote from the book, why is it different in the book?
It's quite literally the most famous quote, I think, of the book.
What do they use in they say it in the movie, right?
I think so, yeah. I don't remember though.
No.
Interesting.
We'll have to keep an eye on that when we eventually watch the movie.
I was just gonna say, I'm like scared for when we watch this movie.
I'm gonna be extremely drunk. It's gonna be the worst.
Yeah, I'm gonna be very drunk. I'm gonna be more drunk than I am now.
I don't want to watch these movies more than I don't want to do anything else.
I honestly have been thinking about Twilight so much that I really want to watch the movie.
I won't lie. I'm kind of like, as much as I don't want to, I'm also excited for when we get to it.
I'm going to like cringe off of the face of the earth.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate the thought of it.
I googled that line because now I'm curious.
Yeah.
And the Goodreads quote is the one in the book. And then like the image results I have found are the one from the back of the book. So it seems like this is
so weird.
It's like widespread. The mistake happened and they just ran with it.
I feel like it must be intentional for some reason.
I would argue that using the word dominant like is an active choice because
Yeah.
I feel like that draws a certain type of person. And by that's a weird way to say it. That draws a certain audience
Well,
that
Yes.
Twilight is marketed for, right? Like,
Yeah.
50 Shades of Grey.
Ugh. But like, why would you not change it in the book? Because I agree that dominant is a better word to use there.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's very strange to me that they choose to include a quote on the cover, but change it.
So weird.
That is very weird.
Maybe somebody who like does marketing or something will listen to our podcast and can answer this question for us. If you have an answer for us, please tweet me. I would love to know. At
Yeah.
Midlight Pod. Hit me up.
Yeah, so now that we're done talking about these super good books, we get to guess what's going to happen next time. So the Twilight chapter, chapter 10, is interrogations. And let me just open the Midnight Sun book because
think
it
it's
is
also
also
in-
interrogations.
Yeah, I was like, it's also
And the-
interrogations.
The
Yeah.
Midnight Sun chapter is called Interrogations.
Oh, the dramatic reveal that everyone
Okay,
was waiting for.
The only thing I can think of for this chapter is that scene in the movie where they pull up and Edward's wearing sunglasses and like that I think I can't remember what song it is. Is it the Muse song or something where they like kind of officially announce themselves as a couple and they enter the school together? But I don't think that's actually what happens. But that's what my brain is going to.
I have no memory of this.
No? Oh my
None
God,
whatsoever.
I can't wait till we get to the movie.
I mean, I'm guessing that in the Twilight chapter, it's Jess and Bella
Right.
talking, right? Because at the end of this chapter, Jess calls and is like, "Tell me all about it tomorrow." So I'm guessing
true.
that's what this chapter is. And maybe on the Edward side,
It's like, it could be his family, but they already know. Is it just going to be Edward listening
I was
to
about
Jess
to
and Bella?
say,
Oh, I hope
that's
not.
probably what it is.
It's going to be so boring.
Because when they're named the same thing, it's usually the same scene.
Yeah. I swear to God, if the entire Midnight Sun chapter is just like Edward sitting in Spanish class or whatever listening to Jessica, I mean, I'm not going to do anything, but I'm going to be displeased
gonna
about
be
it.
Unhappy about
I'm
it.
going to be unhappy.
I'm not gonna love it.
Yeah.
I will express my displeasure in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
My guess is that it's exactly that, and we're all going to be unhappy.
I wonder if Edward's gonna pick her up for school. I feel like that's the thing that happens.
Maybe. He does save her a spot at lunch, right? Because he said he would.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure the scene I'm remembering from Twilight is because he surprises her in the morning and picks her up, and then they show up together. And then he's stupidly wearing sunglasses, even though we all know he can't go out in the sun.
Yeah, but he has to look cool, Sam.
I mean, he did look cool.
Gotta look cool.
Like, I'm sorry, you can't, like, as shitty as Edward is, Robert Pattinson in that scene is, like, so good. Anyways.
Remember when he was shirtless in that one scene and everyone, like, screamed because it was...
Yeah.
Anyway.
No.
Yeah, I do.
I don't think I was horny enough as a teenager to
I
notice
was.
these
No.
things.
Oh, see, I was in a different circle where everyone was like, no.
Oh no. Again, I'm the one with the shirt, so let's never forget
That's true.
that.
Great point.
We're gonna find that shirt.
I'm also usually the horny one on this podcast. Let's not forget that either.
Great point.
It's great that my
Someone
mom
has to
listens
be.
to this.
Except when it's about alligators.
I forgot that my mom follows us on Instagram, and I made a reel of talking about Edward's dick, and then she liked it. And I almost dissolved into a puddle on the floor. Sorry, Mom.
It's really good.
Good podcast.
If you want to see me making jokes about Edward's dick, if you want to see me making jokes about Edward's dick, you can talk to us and find fun-related content on social media. We're at Midlight Pod on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And all chapters of the show are available on our website, midlightpod.podbean.com, and on YouTube, Spotify, and your favorite podcatcher of choice, where you should rate and review us because we talk about Edward's
No, we don't. Only Hannah does.
Only Hannah does.
Sam will eventually, undoubtedly.
I mean, I haven't yet.
When we get to Breaking Dawn.
Oh, I hate Breaking Dawn.
Okay. Sam, take it away.
Take it away, Sam.
And as we all go back into lockdown, we will all be like Edward. Alone and hurting no one else for a change.
That was so sad.
What a bummer.
A bummer.